Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. So I came across this tweet, this X post, and it was talking about take your wife to work so that she can be less ignorant about what it is that you do. And for a lot of labor jobs, that's something that would be quite enlightening. And women's jobs are kind of more mental. No doubt every job has stress, but physical laborious jobs have a way of really tiring out a person. And I think it's high time that a lot of women see everything their husbands do for them. Because when it's out of sight, it's out of mind. And I think we would also have a sense of gratitude more for our husbands if we saw what they did. And it would also be enlightening as well, depending on the job that they do. Now, I understand, and not every job is able to do that because security reasons, but how amazing would it be just for like a wife to see what her husband goes through, especially for those who are very materialistic and they don't want to cook for their husbands, they don't want to clean, they're not very nurturing, it's just give me money because I'm pretty, and be very catty and boastful. So how about we start that trend? It would be cool. Imagine going to your boss and being like, hey, listen, I really want my wife to see what it is I do here, so get it done. And to be fair, there's tons of posts by moms who will laugh about how their husbands, when they are required to stay home and deal with the meltdowns of the kids and organizing the meals for the children, that they're like, oh, this isn't as easy as I thought it is. So even in The Office, if I recall, there was like a scene where like Pam comes in with the children and they're crying, and it like moves somebody, I forget who it was, to say like, oh, she is doing quite a lot. Like the people in the office have more empathy because Jim needed to take the day off, right? So let's be fair. We want husbands to acknowledge what their wives do. So why not learn what your husbands do? And maybe this will help people to see the value of a dollar. That when they're expecting so much from their husband, but he's just a regular human, you gotta see what he does. And some jobs, I bet, are mind-numbingly horrible. Like people who have to stare at a screen and watch charts, or have to work in like the warehouses where you're stocking stuff. That would be excruciatingly boring. And dirty jobs are especially dirty jobs, as in you're working on a sewer pipe, you're repairing a broken urinal, something along that line, or you're working in a slaughterhouse. Even think about, there's some women who work on farms, but in industrialized farms you tend to see more men, and I would be curious to see how those wives watch their husbands work in the hot sun. We have to start connecting men and women again to appreciate one another, especially when we have grifters like Pearly Things who are really trying to find ways to separate men and women and cause more divorces, I'd argue, and to actually prevent marriage. And so maybe a husband can take his wife to work. I remember when my grandpa took me once to his construction job as a kid, and I thought it was really cool. And he used to take me carpet cleaning with him because I used to help him. And that was important for me to see as a kid, and I helped him, as much as I could. It's just a kid. But my dad would also take me to the music studio he owned. And I would, as just a kid, watching people like be in the studio with the microphone and all these little buttons, and watching my dad work. And then he would practice the drums, and so he had a huge drum set in his spare room, and he would just play like, and I would just be playing, and I would see like that's to work for him because he was in a band. And so I found that to be intriguing. Just when you see what your father does, your grandfather does, it teaches you a new angle. And coming across this post made me really appreciate seeing that. And when you think about it, we women, we observe men working hard, laborious jobs all the time. And we kind of forget that's someone's husband, right? And then we don't think about our own husbands and what they do. And if you recall the hadith that talks about how there will be a lot of women in hell because of the ingratitude towards their husbands, I'm paraphrasing, but it makes me think about how a lot of wives kind of forget what their husbands do. And there's a split happening where you'll see mom say, oh, he thinks all I'm doing all day is sitting around, and it's a different type of stress with the children and a different type of boredom and isolation. And then you'll see men doing extraneous work, and both of the men and the woman are both feeling separated and alienated from one another and not appreciated by the other person. But if we can bring them together and show that they're both participating in this team effort to raise these beautiful children and to be good citizens and productive people, we can create more harmony instead of making them all want to out-victimize one another, and to highlight how they're both doing their noble duties to their family. And so maybe that could be a thing. What do you think? I know some people make jokes like, my wife being at the job, I go to my job to go to work for my wife. Come on, be nice. It would actually help a lot of people. Now, if you're already familiar with the type of work your husband does, then that's pretty cool. But I think there would be a lot of women who'd be quite surprised about what kind of people their husband works for and has to deal with, and the amount of tasks he has to do. And this can change some people, right? If you recall, there used to be movies where they would say, oh, your dad should come to the school and talk about career day and what he does for a living to the class. You'd see that in a lot of 90s films. And if it was important for kids to know what their dad does and to talk about it, why not allow the wife to see it? Because believing is something helps a lot when you get to see it, right? You empathize more. And since women often can be just as visual as men, them seeing the hardship that their husband faces can greatly benefit them, I'd argue. Let me know what you think, and, get on it. Take your wife to work. If you'd like to join my blog and support my content, you can do so by going to www.subscribestar.com/MilahanArchive. Hope to see you there.